let's try to get going here. We have a lot of information to try to give you this morning, and we want to try to get through that as quickly as we can so that there will be time for questions and answers and comments at the end of the presentation. My name is Paul Causey. I'm the President Pro Tem of the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District Board of Directors, and I very much am excited about this morning's Southern Area briefing. We want to talk to you a little bit about the district, some of the activities that are going on, and some of the activities that are directly affecting the Southern area. But we're going to talk a little bit about today many of the things that go into the district. And we are, just for your information, we are videotaping this morning. So if you have questions, we're going to get those on videotape so that we know what they are, and hopefully we can respond to anything that's raised during the day. I hope today to really go through the following things that you see up on the slides today. We're going to talk a little bit about the district and who we are and how we got here. We're going to talk about our services, what we're currently doing in the way of planning, as you might well expect. The future for wastewater and wastewater treatment is very broad. Regulations are changing continually, and so we're going to talk about some of the things that are impacting our industry and the operations that we have at the district. We're going to talk about how we fund all of this and what our rates and charges are. We're going to talk a little bit about, and probably more than a little bit, about recycled water and the drought. As you all are aware, we've had some pretty significant drought issues in the last 4 or 5 years. And how many of you today think the drought's over? Oh, you're a good group. Excellent. Beautiful. And then finally, we're going to talk about some of the future issues affecting the district and hopefully leave you with some things that you can take home to help the district make sure that we're responsible and we treat things the way we should. So who is Central San? Well, we think we are a high-performing organization that's going to provide exceptional customer service in full compliance with all the regulations at responsible rates. And we're going to do that by protecting public health and the environment. Those are the two most important things, and we're going to do that through the values that you see here of people, which are our people, our district staff, our communities that we service. We service 13 communities in the area, by the principles that we put forward in terms of the way we're going to operate. And then finally, we have strong leadership and commitment to the very important things, important work that we're doing. How did we get here? Well, we started and were formed in 1946, and at that time we had the worst septic sewer system, as I read it, throughout the state of California. Most of the services that were provided in the area were all septic systems, and those septic systems were failing significantly. And as a result of that, the Board of Supervisors realized that there was a need for a centralized program. And that centralized program resulted in the development of the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District. And within 2 years after that development, in 1948, which was the year I was born, we had a service population of 15,000. We had 50 miles of pipeline and a 4.5 MGD, million gallon per day, treatment plant. And that's gone from there to this service area that you see up here now. We now provide service to the area that you see on here that's green is the service area directly impacting the sewage treatment plant. You see in purple the city of Concord and Clayton. By contract, they are responsible for their own collection, but we actually provide sewage treatment for the Concord and Clayton area. And then finally, the two pink areas that you see are areas of the Mountain View Sanitary District and the second half and bottom southern area of San Ramon, which are able to use our household hazardous waste facility. And so that encompasses the entire service area that Central San provides. 471,000 residents, a little bigger than the 15,000 in 1948. 3,000 commercial industrial customers, 144 square miles, 1,500 miles of pipeline, 1,500 miles. Most of the agencies I've worked with over my 47-year career, we had maybe 300 miles of pipeline, so 1,500 is a large number and one of the largest collection systems in the state. 19 separate pumping stations that move sewage from various areas into the sewage treatment plant. We have a sewage treatment plant that can treat, on an average day, 54 million gallons of flow. Currently, our flow at the plant is about 30 million gallons, and that's down from 40 million before the drought started. So drought is having a direct impact not only on the treatment plant process, but also on the collection system lines. And then finally, also on our site, we have a current 3.8 million gallon per day recycled water treatment plant that we use to prepare and produce recycled water for our use, as well as some other areas of the district, which we'll get into a little bit later. So that's who we are and how large we are. The services we provide in general are sewage collection and pumping, sewage treatment and disposal. Disposal is in the river. After we do the treatment on the 30 to 40 million gallons a day, then that water, other than what we use for recycling, the 3.8 million gallons, goes directly into the river and is disposed of in a deep water outfall in the river itself. We also have some separate programs that are somewhat unusual for a sewer district, and those include pollution prevention programs, public education, and we have a very unique pilot sustainable farm that we're going to talk a little bit more about. But we're very proud of our household hazardous waste program, and especially our pharmaceutical program. So here are a couple of pictures just to give you some sense of where we are. The treatment plant on the far left, that encompasses a very large area now. We have a large area in acreage that the treatment plant covers. In the center of the picture, you see the large equipment that's used to actually maintain and clean the pipelines in the district. And then finally, we have a very large infrastructure program to replace, in many cases, many of the 1,500 miles of line that we have that are now, in some cases, almost 100 years old. And we are moving forward to making sure that those lines are indeed being treated and are able to operate appropriately. We also have, as you know, a very aggressive recycled water program. And in the last 3 years, we've really amped this up. But our recycled water program, probably many of you don't know, we're providing recycled water to country clubs, to medians along the way in various areas in our Zone 1 service area. We also, at the bottom, you can see we have a water truck fill station. Last year in the drought, during the drought, the Contra Costa Water District and others actually were not allowing potable water to be used for cleaning and for dust reduction. And so the district does have a couple of areas where trucks can actually come in and fill up and they can be used to take care of dust control and things like that. And finally, last year we had a very interesting challenge for making sure that, that recycled water was available to residential customers. And so you can see the truck with a 300-gallon tote in the back, which probably many of you have seen running around the various areas in Central County, both ourselves in Dublin, San Ramon. Most of the treatment plants in Delta Diablo are providing recycled water to residential customers, and we'll show you a little bit about how much that program has really blown up in the last year and a half. Our household hazardous waste collection facility. In the last 10 months, we've collected almost 2 million pounds of hazardous waste that could very well have gotten into the treatment system, things that have been taken out like pesticides, paint, those kinds of things come to the household hazardous waste facility located directly at the city's or at the district's facility, and that facility is open 8 days a week. As much, well, not 8 days, but seems like it sometimes, but clearly the amount of waste that is coming in is very significant. Actually, this year we had the opportunity, someone called up and said, how do I get rid of 20 pounds of mercury? Mercury. Now, in the old days when I was young, we used to play with the mercury on the table, you know, and we push it and move it around. Well, not so much anymore. So 20 pounds of mercury was disposed of at the household hazardous waste facility. Didn't get into the waste stream, didn't cause any problems. You can see also on here from the southern area, about 12.4% of the residents in Danville actually participated and brought up to about 717 visits at the household hazardous waste facility. San Ramon, only about 3.1%. Clearly a long drive from San Ramon up to the household hazardous waste facility, but it clearly is available to the residents all in the southern area. Our pharmaceutical drop-off. How many of you understand the problem and the challenges of pharmaceutical in today's world? Oh, very good. Pharmaceuticals are really causing all kinds of problems. You've probably heard about the frogs that have had strange legs and new things that can't be explained just yet. A lot of this really deals with the pharmaceuticals and what's happened. The district recognized this and in 2009 established a very strong program for the deposit and collection of pharmaceuticals. And those pharmaceuticals now are collected in 13 different sites here in Central County. mostly at police stations and fire stations. We've collected over 76,000 pounds of pharmaceuticals. You bring your pharmaceuticals in, you find the green box, you put it in a plastic bag and you drop it in and everything goes away, rather than taking your pills and just dumping them right into the toilet and flushing them, which seemed to be the old way things were handled. But we've actually, in the southern area, been able to take out well over 12,000 pounds of pharmaceuticals out of the waste stream. And we continue to press that program, and it's been very, very successful since its implementation. Student education, a big part of our program, outreach and education, not only to students but also to adults. Our student education program includes our Water Wizards programs for the 5th graders. It includes a sewer science program for the high school kids. And then finally, those things come together in our Delta Discovery Voyage, where we actually take the students out and put on a boat and let them do actual testing and monitoring in the bay to see what's in the water, to see what, it's not just water. It's got lots of things growing in it, lots of things in it, and they can actually put what they've learned in both the science, the sewer science and other areas from the district's outreach, actually put it into practical use on the Delta Discovery Voyages. Those are done in the spring. Our newest and most exciting opportunity was just kicked off this year and just completed, and that's for the adults in the area, from anybody, I think, 18 and over. We're calling it the Central San Academy. It's our outreach to public citizens and to the customers of the district, anybody who's interested in understanding what wastewater is. It's an opportunity for the district staff to overview many of the functions that we operate under. It involves both the board of directors as well as the management staff. And you can see the topics that were generally covered this year in the program. We had a very, very positive response this year from the attendees at the Academy. We will be again running this Academy next year. If any of you are interested, by all means talk to Emily or any of the other staff that are here. We'd be happy to put your name on the list. It's a 6-week program, 2 hours a night for 6 weeks. It includes a tour of the sewage treatment plant and the household hazardous waste facility, and it gives an opportunity really to get in and understand how the district works, what the important issues are facing the wastewater district, and really have a better understanding. We find that most citizens, even though they read the pipeline and many of the outreach materials that we have, still don't understand how complex this wastewater operation really is. And so this is an opportunity for citizens to really come in and find out all about wastewater treatment and operation. Finally, 2 years ago, the board adopted and approved a memorandum and agreement with the CoCo San Sustainable Farm. This is an opportunity for the district to promote its recycled water program, as well as providing the opportunity on 14 acres for this sustainable farm to actually build and use recycled water to grow vegetables and products that can be used in the local schools, in the food pantries in the local area. And this program, we've just received in January the final permits from the county, and so hopefully now we will move forward on the 14 acres to really start producing things. This is not a district operation. The program is done by a separate consortium or board, and that consortium will be responsible for using the district recycled water to grow these vegetables. Major initiatives that we've completed in the last year or so. When Roger came in 3 years ago, he observed that there were things that we needed to look at, and we actually did a significant cost of service evaluation to look at all of our rates and charges, how we were collecting money, what the philosophies were behind capacity charges, collection charges, treatment charges. We also looked at our organization and went through the staffing analysis of all of the staffing that we have at the district. We currently have about 290 full-time equivalent positions at the district. We evaluated those to determine whether we were right staffed or not, and what came out of that was the addition of only 3 additional staff, but it did indicate that the staffing that we have is not inappropriate given the size of the organization. And finally, as I said earlier, we've started a very aggressive residential recycled water fill station program, and that program, you'll see in just a minute just how large that has gotten and really has involved a significant outreach to the public. So what are we doing to look forward to the future? What are we doing to involve not only our staff, but also other things that are taking place in the local area? The staff has put together, and the board has approved just recently, a new 2-year strategic plan, which is guided by the Water Environment Federation's principles for effective utility management. It deals with the things over the next 2 years the district hopes to accomplish. We've established certain metrics associated with the strategic plan for the things that we think are important for the district to move itself forward. There are some bodacious goals that have been included that Ann has put together in the program for the future of the district. We've talked a little bit about staffing. We've evaluated staffing. We continue to evaluate staffing to make sure that we are right staffed. We've talked about a leadership development program, and the leadership development program turned out to be very important. Many of you may not know, but 4 years ago in April, right before the big election for the retirement benefits program, the district lost 75 employees that retired within about 2 weeks. 75 employees, and most of them were upper management who had been at the district for 20 to 30 years. And so what we've done at this point is Roger's developed a very strong leadership program, both internally for managers as well as for supervisors, to help develop and encourage people to understand how important leadership really is in the wastewater business. We completed the cost of service study. We're now working on a wastewater master plan I'm going to talk a little bit more about. It's important for our future. We have nutrient issues that are being raised by the regulators and regional boards that we're going to be looking at. We're looking at some pilot studies at the treatment plant for treatment techniques and technologies, and we're looking at alternate treatment opportunities and doing some research in those areas. And finally, we're going to expand as much as we can our recycled water program as quickly as possible. We have just in the last 2 months completed, with the help of Dave Richardson and their group, a comprehensive water recycling program, or a master plan, that really looks at what the local uses are out there for recycled water, and we're looking in a very, very big way. The district has about 25 million gallons a day of water that could be recycled, and so this comprehensive study really looks at what are the options and alternatives for the use of that water. Comprehensive wastewater master plan. Well, in 1972, the Clean Water Act was approved, provided lots of funding and money for improvements in wastewater treatment. Many and most agencies across the United States took full advantage of those programs, received 85.5% or 87.5% money to fund all those improvements. That was really great, but they also didn't include the responsibilities for the replacement of those assets when they reached the end of their useful life. The district's assets, by and large, were in place in the 1970s, early 80s, so they're all almost 50 years old now. Those 50-year-old assets are ready to be replaced in large part, and so the comprehensive wastewater master plan will look at our collection system, it will look at our treatment plant systems, and really decide going forward what are the regulatory impacts, what are the replacement impacts for the $3.6 billion worth of assets that the district owns, and will give us some priorities and looking forward to exactly what some of the costs might be for the replacement of these assets. Because quite frankly, in today's world, federal funding and state funding is generally not available to us for the replacement of these assets. I might note, if you take a look up here in the upper left, that's the treatment plant in 1948. And you might recall, this is the same picture we had earlier. That's the treatment plant right now. And the property that we own is everything. We're almost out to the river. So it's a much bigger operation now than it was in 1948, but clearly improvements have been made. So let's talk a little bit about how we fund things, what the costs of operation are. And our annual budget is about $113 million. That's broken down to $87 million for operations and maintenance. Those are the things, the treatment maintenance, the treatment of the wastewater that comes into the plant, the maintenance and operation of the pump station, the collection system, the operation of the recycled water program, the operations of the household hazardous waste and pharmaceutical programs, and all of that encompasses the $87 million a year that we spend. In addition, we spend approximately $30 million a year on capital improvements, the replacement and renewal of our systems, and those are broken out into 4 various areas: the treatment plant, collection system, general improvements, which are buildings and facilities that are not included in the treatment plant or the collection system, and then finally a recycled water program. So this is not an inexpensive process. $113 million clearly probably pales with regard to many of the other operations in the local county area, but for 290 employees and the operations that we do, we think that's very reasonable budget amount. So where do our revenues come from? Well, our operations revenues, and we're talking now revenues for operations and for maintenance, total revenue is $86 million, and that comes from mostly sewer service charges. So 80% of our overall funds are from sewer service charges. Those of you that are familiar with Proposition 218 requires that we have fair and equitable charges, and these are really mostly for the operation and maintenance program. We have a contract with the City of Concord. City of Concord pays for its treatment on a flow-based cost, and you can see about 15% of our cost comes from payments from the City of Concord. And then we have some various other programs that we run that are very minor in terms of the overall budget revenue to the Operations and Maintenance Fund. Currently, recycled water sales are very small. We're probably giving away more water than we're using, or than we're receiving revenue on, and we hopefully in the next year will be looking at that to determine what the appropriate way to deal with recycled water and the revenues associated with that. Our capital budget, $30 million a year. Those funds come from property taxes. Each of you pay a property tax bill, and part of that property tax actually comes to the district. It funds capital replacement. We have some funding from sewer service charges. We have capacity fees that are based on the connection to the system and a buy into the system. And you can see the various pieces of that puzzle that are paid for through the different components of funding. The final component is really the City of Concord. They also pay for treatment-related improvements only and not for the collection system. So how much money have we spent in the last few years? We have spent $305 million, the district has, in the last 10 years to fund the replacement of various assets. And this chart, the various different colors that you see on the chart, relate to the four programs that I talked to just a minute ago: treatment, collection, general improvements, and recycled water. You can see in the last 3 or 4 years, the recycled water program has increased its funding and cost. Prior to about 2007, there was very little money being put into it other than the uses on site, and we've really expanded that program. But as you might expect, the largest single cost associated with capital improvements is the collection system itself. Current collection system costs running about $1 million a mile for replacement of pipelines. What's the future look like? Well, over the next 10 years, as of today, without the comprehensive wastewater master plan, we've identified $413 million worth of additional improvements that need to be made to make sure that the system continues to operate in the most efficient and effective way. These improvements include improvements in the treatment plant for aging systems and replacements, replacement of existing pipelines, especially in the 6 to 12-inch variety. It involves various improvements for seismic improvements on our general improvements at the site. It could also include some energy work, as well as looking at opportunities for efficiency in the operations of our overall program. And finally, we expect to be enhancing our recycled water program pretty significantly for the $3.6 billion worth of assets that we currently own on the books. So what do we charge you? Well, we charge single-family residences $503 a year. That's the new rate for next year. The multiple family rate, which is a new rate, as part of the cost of service study, it was determined that to be fair and equitable, we needed to recognize that multiple families residences generally do not have the same number of people that single-family homes do, and so as a consequence, the board actually developed a lower rate for multiple family units of $487 for next year. Commercial industrial rates are based on their flow and their discharge parameters of BOD and suspended solids. Schools, we had a little bit of a quirk with the schools. We had to work with them last year. Their charges are based on the number of students, the number of pupils that they have at each of the schools. And so those numbers last year turned out to be a pretty substantial increase. We actually worked very closely with the school districts last year, and the board ultimately reduced the rate increase that was impacting the schools. The current rates that have been established by the board of directors is only a 2-year rate program. So fortunately or unfortunately, when the master plan is completed next year, we will be looking at a new rate evaluation as these rates only go through June 30th of 2017. And future rates will have to be based on our needs going forward for both the $413 million as well as our overall operation and maintenance costs. And I'm very happy to report that the board yesterday just approved the budget for next year with only about a 2.5% increase to the O&M fund and a rather large substantial increase into the capital fund for the replacements that are necessary going forward. So how do our rates compare? Well, if you take a look at the chart up here, you can see the district's sewer rates are well below the median. These are the rates for the current year, $471. Next year it'll be $503. We're still below the median rate, but this is the rates in the areas all around us, and it's a very favorable rate. One of the goals in the strategic plan is to make sure that we do our best to maintain rates below the median rate of the surveys that are here, and we're very proud of the rates that we have and the way we funded things. Okay, get your hats on. It's time for recycle water. We're going to talk a little bit about that and talk about that important program as it affects not only this area, but the overall area of the district. I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about what is the water supply. And this graph really is pretty demonstrative of just how small a portion of the overall water supply that we as individuals, all of us, use. The overall water supply, total global, 96% of all water is in the oceans. Only about 2.5% of the water is fresh water that we can utilize for public consumption. Out of the 2.5%, glaciers and ice caps are 68% of that today. Depends on what global warming is doing to it, putting it into the ocean. Groundwater is 30%, and that only leaves surface water that's available to us of 1.2%. And then if you look at the final bar, out of all of that, you can see where that water goes and where that water is. Does anybody understand, or I hope everybody, because you're so familiar with recycled water, recognize water is not produced or increased. It's the same water that Julius Caesar used back in the early part of the millennium. And water is, all water is recycled water, and it has been recycled in many, many ways. And so, but the reality is, this graph says there really is a very small amount of water that we as the public are actually dealing with. So, none of you thought the drought was over. Well, here's the most latest version of the U.S. Drought Monitor from the state of California. You can see in the northern part of California, things have improved. However, in the middle of the state and the southern part of the state, we are still in a very severe drought. It's very unfortunate that many of the state regulators have indicated that they think the drought is pretty well over. And I think I drove across New Melones just the other day. New Melones is only about half full at this point. Yes, some of the reservoirs in Northern California are spilling or have gotten almost completely full, but I don't think that the runoff from the snow melt this year is going to be as great as we expect. I think we're still going to be in a severe drought, and as a consequence, we really do need to keep pressing forward with the concept of recycled water. Very significant use of recycled water in Southern California, and we need to enhance that in Northern California. So, what have we done to try to do that? The district instituted this residential recycled program. You can come in, any of you, 300 gallons, up to 300 gallons for any trips you want to take during the day. You can fill up your 300-gallon container. It's located at the Household Hazardous Waste Facility, and you can come in as many times as you like for free, note free, recycled water. So, in the last year and a half, 2,180 customers have made almost 60,000, that's 60,000 trips to the treatment plant for recycled water. We've distributed almost 12.7 million gallons of recycled water through 300-gallon totes or smaller. You bring your 5-gallon tote in, you can actually fill up a 5-gallon tote. So, but clearly the Danville and San Ramon area, you see the numbers associated with that. Those numbers are lower, and we assume that in San Ramon they're lower because Dublin-San Ramon, thank you, Dan, is a lot closer, and they have a recycled water program that's just as aggressive as Delta or as Central Sands. So what is our recycled water program? Well, we have major water suppliers that we have to deal with, and those major water suppliers are Contra Costa Water District and East Bay Mud, also the City of Martinez, and anything we do in the way of recycled water has to be coordinated and directed with those agencies as they are the water purveyor in the local area. We also are looking at expanding our current recycled water facilities. We're looking at uses by the district. We currently use a substantial amount of our recycled water at the district for uses inside the plant, and we're expanding our uses in the service area. We just recently finished an expansion in our Zone 1 service area into an area that where the Hilton Hotel is, the old Chevron area was, and that was funded by a state grant of $1.1 million to both Contra Costa Water District and Central San. We're going to talk a little bit about future options and expansion. Program highlights. We started delivering water in 1998. We have 13 miles of pipeline currently that provide recycled water to Diablo Valley College, to the country clubs in the local area in our Zone 1, and that pipeline actually reaches almost down to the end of Pleasant Hill. It now has entered into the city of Concord. We have truck fill stations, 2 or 3 truck fill stations where the large trucks can come in and fill. We're actually improving that fill station to be an automatic solar-driven facility where the trucks can come in, fill up, and it's automatically generated, and it will allow us to keep track of how much water is actually going out. And then finally, we have the residential fill station with, what's the number now, Melody? How many? 12? 12 areas where people can actually come in and fill up. Annually recycled water uses, we have 200 million gallons that are distributed off-site and 400 million gallons used on-site. So here's the service area that we have. In the middle, right here is the sewage treatment plant. This is Highway 4, 680. You can see that here's the Country Club, city of Pleasant Hill, and the pipeline extends from the treatment plant all the way down to the edge of Pleasant Hill. We also have refineries. The pipelines are out here, and the refineries are available should they want water, and should we be able to develop a program so that they can take a substantial amount of our recycled water. The new program is right here in the area where the Hilton Hotel is, and we actually are providing water into many of the businesses there, and the businesses are using the water for our toilet flushing, for internal uses and landscaping, and probably the most exciting one is the Diablo Valley College. We've been providing recycled water to DVC for several years for toilet flushing and internal uses. But that's the service area that we have for the program. We have to work closely with Contra Costa Water District to work through these issues and make sure that everybody is made whole in terms of the overall programs that we're putting together. Diablo Valley Country Club, a new outreach. We were approached and have been over the last few years by country clubs who have a substantial need for water. And as you may all be aware, last year in the drought, their water supplies were cut at least 40%. And so they started to look at the opportunities for the use of recycled water on their sites. Diablo Valley Country Club approached us and asked if they could, we could explore the opportunities for the recycled water for their facilities. Last year, early this year, the district entered into an MOU with Diablo Country Club to begin the process of defining a project, to working through the issues related to funding and cost, to developing the standards for the design and the operation of a recycled water facility, to begin to look at and understand the environmental consequences that any facility like that would have, and also to understand how it would be operated and maintained. There are significant concerns around the possibility of developing a remote recycled water facility, and those things need to be worked through. The board of directors at this point of the district have only authorized the development of the information necessary to evaluate the potential for a remote recycle facility. But we have been approached by at least the Moraga Country Club. We have been approached by Rossmore. We've also been approached by the city of Walnut Creek for the possibility of using the recycled water. And so this project really is for the district a pilot project to evaluate concerns and needs. And you see on here some of the concerns that have been raised. We've met with the town of Danville. We've talked recently with the residents in the local area, and we'll talk a little bit through some of those concerns. So what is a remote recycled water facility? Well, basically what would happen is the wastewater would be taken from the existing interceptor blinds, would be moved to a treatment facility that would involve probably membrane filtration and disinfection. That would then result in a recycled water that would meet normal regulations of Title 22 at a minimum. That water would then be put into lakes, facilities at the golf course, and then that water would be used for watering on the golf course itself. All of the things that come out of the treatment process, the solids would actually be put back into the sewer system and sent to the sewage treatment plant. Well, the sewage would be more, the parameters would be, there would be less water and more parameters, but the screenings would have to be hauled off. And overall, the process is a relatively simple, straightforward process. But as to exactly what types of treatment, what facilities would be necessary, and where they would be placed, that still is in the works and not finalized. This map shows some alternatives that are possible. You can see down here on the left would be where we have looked at this point the possibility of taking the sewage out of the sewer interceptor. It would then be pushed back up to a new treatment facility that could be located in any of 3 or 4 different places. The district is still outlining alternatives for that and looking at that, but there, as you see on this map, there are a couple of alternatives on the golf course itself. There's another alternative 1, which is right behind some homes on golf course property. And all the issues associated with the impacts that any of these facilities would play out need to be evaluated and looked at in the part of the project definition, as well as developing the environmental quality requirements that are going to need to be met, because this will have to go through a CEQA process and be evaluated for any impacts that it might have on the fishes, the flora, all of the things that would be impacted, including the homeowners, including the golf courses, and any people using those things. So what are the next steps with Diablo Country Club? We're going to continue to evaluate alternatives. We're developing a master agreement that would be negotiated, and when I say negotiated, that would be between the staffs of the country club and CCCSD. We're developing the possibility of a state revolving loan fund for the funding of the program. We will have to go through a full CEQA analysis on this and documentation. We're going to make an application to the state revolving fund probably sometime later this year for a low-interest construction loan. We're going to be looking at and developing, once we have a project definition and the CEQA worked out, then we would develop operating and financial agreements with DCC. The board has already indicated that this would be a fully revenue-neutral cost to the district. In other words, while the district may operate and maintain and run the facility and work on replacement, the bottom line is that that would be at the full cost to the country club. And finally, current estimates are that this project wouldn't be in place, given all the things that we have to do, the agreements, the CEQA process, and everything else, at the earliest, probably not before 2018. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done. The board of directors at this point, other than approving the memorandum of understanding for development of the program, has not taken any formal action on any of the alternatives or any of the opportunities for our concerns related to where or how this program would be developed. Other programs that we've looked at, I mentioned the comprehensive recycled water program that looked at other alternatives. There's the possibility that refineries, which are just to the north of the district, could take 20 million gallons per day of recycled water. This would free up water to be transported across the region to areas like Zone 7 or other places if they have water supply problems, as they did last summer. There's a Concord Naval Weapons Station, which we are working closely with to provide recycled water into that area. We're looking at the possibility of regional transfers, so moving water up to Los Vaqueros, moving water into the McCollum pipelines, looking at the opportunities for the use of the water, because ultimately I think where we need to be in the long term is with zero discharge into the river as much as possible. And finally, we're looking at more remote recycled water facilities. I've already talked about several of those, and these are kind of on the back wings behind the Diablo Valley Country Club. What are the future focuses for the district? Future things that we're looking at. Well, we have an aging infrastructure. I told you the treatment plant properties and the facilities there are mostly 50 to 60 years old. While the tanks and the concrete will continue to stand, the pumps, the motors, the operators, things like that need to be replaced. We have an incinerator on site that's now almost 50 years old, right? I think it's, and whether it can continue to operate in the current regulatory environment is questioning. We have new regulations that are coming up, both on nutrient removal, and if any of you are aware of what Sacramento is going through, they have a multi-billion-dollar program to do nutrient removal in their wastewater stream in Sacramento. Climate change will affect us, and so we're looking at the effects of climate change on our outfall, on the impacts of our overall operation. We're looking also, and there's a question, many of you may be aware that over the area, the local area, that sewer laterals has become a bigger and bigger problem. I was fortunate enough to be involved, or unfortunate enough to be involved in the consent decree that was recently signed by East Bay Mud with the 7 satellite agencies. In that particular area, it looks like about 160,000 sewer laterals will need to be replaced in the East Bay Mud service area. They're finding that 90% of the laterals in that area are failing. And so the issue of sewer laterals going forward is going to become a bigger and bigger issue. We're more interested in energy sustainability. I mentioned earlier, the wastewater business is one of the most highly utilization of energy. In order to do wastewater treatment, we'll be looking at ways to reduce our reliance on energy. And finally, we'll be expanding our collection of substances and emerging concern. More and more and more, as we look farther and farther into the water, we find more and more issues that need to be addressed, and those things will result in new and expanding regulations that the district will have to deal with. What can you do to help us? Well, don't put those pesky wipes that say they're flushable down the drain. You can see right here what a wipe ball really looks like. One of the agencies in Southern California pulled a 40-foot long rope this big around of wipes that had wrapped around together. Wipes are a huge problem. The industry needs to really move forward with developing proper standards for wipes so that they don't clog pipes. Fats, roots, oils, and grease. Any of you have a lateral that looks like the one up here? I hope not. But guess what? In the drought, roots are looking for any water they can find, and where most of the water is, unfortunately, is in the pipes. Don't pour that grease down the drain. Don't let your family pour the grease down the drain. Contain it, put it out in your recycling, and don't put the grease in the pipes, because that creates a maintenance problem. So go home and make sure that you don't let your family deal with roots, oils, or grease. Board of Directors, these are the 5 members of our Board of Directors currently. We meet every Thursday at 2 p.m., the 1st and 3rd, and the board has been in place. We are 5 publicly elected at large, and we are looking forward to an election in November where 3 positions will be available. So with that, I think that's the presentation I had that I wanted to talk about. Time for you to all ask questions, and we'll try to answer as much as we can. So with that, any questions, comments, concerns, issues? Yes,
so I was surprised at what a small part was, the recycled water, which we don't still have in there though. So, but why is it so small? Is it just because I thought the technology had been around for a long time.
Technology has been around a very long time. The issue really is public acceptance, and the public has been less than forward-thinking in terms of the use of recycled water. More and more it is being pushed forward. The challenges of trying to develop recycled water with water distributing agencies also has been a challenge. When I was at Diablo, we built one of the largest recycled water programs for power plant cooling. But the reality is the public still believes that recycled water can't be managed to be used, even though every drop of water that we use is fully recycled and has been since time immemorial. So the issue of getting public acceptance for recycled water is hugely important. The drought has significantly helped that. You can see we've issued $12 million or 12 million gallons of free recycled water just in the last year. I think the public is much more accepting of it. Southern California was short of water. Orange County Sanitation District has used recycled water since the early 60s. Now, they sold that program originally as a groundwater barrier to not allow the saline water from the ocean to come in. But the reality is you put the water in for the barrier near the ocean, the water is then pumped, or moves its way to the pumps that are inland, and that water comes out and is used as actual drinking water. So Southern California is way ahead of Northern California, and it really is an education issue for that. Okay. Yes, sir.
You spoke that funding the project might involve using something called the state revolving fund.
Yes.
Is that Is that a loan or a bond?
It would be a loan. It's a low-interest loan, and a low-interest loan would be it has to be to a municipal or a special district, so it would be to the district. However, the way the board has discussed it, it would have to be fully amortized by the country club as part of the operations and maintenance costs of the program.
If the country club were to default, then it would be an obligation of the district?
That's one of the issues that would have to be dealt with in any agreement with them, and that's one of the issues that has been raised. What happens?
Have you compared that to possible using money from the California Pollution Control Financing Authority? Is the district or is the country club eligible for that funding?
I don't know that, I'm not directly involved in these discussions, so I can't answer all those questions.
So I think you're talking about the same thing, though. The SR loan is one and the same, I would assume. And so we're working through with the
No, the Pollution Control Financing Authority money, it's been a couple of years since I looked at it, but it was not available to municipal agencies. It was for private entities.
Okay, well, I think that's something clearly the members of the country club are here, and I think they ought to take a look at. And we'll follow up with the district staff also. Other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had occasion to visit the hazardous waste facility a few years ago, and I was impressed that there were a lot of free things you could take, like paint and so forth. Is that still there?
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that. I forgot to mention it when we went through it. The household hazardous waste facility does also include a reuse room where you can actually come to the facility, drop off your hazardous waste, and pick up somebody else's recycled waste that can be reused. Things like paint. What else, Melody, is at the facility?
There's some of the more of the safer pesticides that individuals bring in that can be reused. Anything that's real bad, we will properly dispose of.
No mercury, no mercury.
That's exactly right, that doesn't come back out. But paint is a big one because that's the #1 waste we receive in, and you'd be amazed. Some of them are completely untouched. You can come in and get some really nice paint, you paint inside your home.
Basically for free?
For free.
Basically for free, so if you attend the facility, you can get both. You can bring as much as you can in, but you can take some away too. Thanks for the question, that was a good one. Okay, other observations? Yes, sir, George.
Yeah, as you know, I discussed this on the phone with you, Paul, and it seems you're going to make this master agreement with the country club, and as a homeowner adjacent to the country club, one of their proposed sites, I understand, is right behind our home, or our neighbor's home. Has there ever been any experience? It is a pilot program too, so we have no way of evaluating until they go to the environmental impact statement. So how can people whose home values may be affected by the site location, how do they get involved in this process before you sign this master agreement, which spells out what it's going to be?
Well, I think you need two things. One is, based on the comments that I've received from property owners I've talked to just in the last week, we are looking for facilities that are very similar to this that we can provide you as background information.
Are there any existing facilities
We think
similar?
there are. We think there are, and we'll be able to find some that we can provide to you for information.
Oh,
But
Christie noted there was one at an Indian casino somewhere way out in the rural area.
Right.
And also, there's one under a Michigan parking lot, but that's the only ones we're aware of. Do you have locations we can look at?
I don't have specific locations right now. We are trying to look for some, and as soon as we find them, we'll get them to you. And so but the reality is also, you talked about the master agreement. The master agreement, the project has to be defined first. And so once the project is defined, I'm sure that project description will be available to everybody before we get into the CEQA process. As I said earlier, this process is going to take 2 to 3 years. So there's lots of time, lots of information. The district, I know, has been working directly with the homeowners in the last month or so to talk to and deal with issues related to concerns and issues that might need to be addressed. I think our goal would be to make sure that we understand all of the issues, not only the homeowners, but the environmental issues, the regulatory issues, the funding issues. The district board recognized any agreement that comes before the board will not be in the short term, and there will be two sets of agreements. One would be for the project itself, and the other would be for the operations and maintenance of the project, if the district agrees to take that on. That's one
So
of
the
issues.
master agreement will, the site location will be in that master agreement?
The site location probably will, the alternatives will be known prior to any master agreement that would be considered by the board of directors. So what we're in right now is a phase of defining what the alternatives look like, what alternatives are out there. There are, we showed you 3 alternatives up here. There may be other alternatives that are available that need to be scoped out, but we're very, very early in the process of defining what might be available in terms of dealing with the opportunities for the Diablo.
But when you finally get around to signing the master agreement, will the site location be in there?
Yes, well, all the alternatives will be in that agreement. And I don't see the final agreement being approved before the CEQA process has taken place. And so you have the opportunity to make input from now till any of the agreements come before the board of directors. As I said earlier, the board at this point has only entered into and authorized the staff to begin discussions with the country club over the defining of the project, the development of what the alternatives might look like, and what the process is we need to go through to determine how it would be funded, who would pay for it. Well, we know who would pay for it, but how it would be funded, and what obligations that would put place on the district. And so the board of directors has not been directly involved in this, other than to approve the MOU at this stage. Lots and lots of work left to do. We're very, very early in this, and we will, and Emily has done a very good job, I think, of outreach to the customers and to the area. We've had conversations with the town of Danville over their concerns, and clearly we will try to identify all. It appears at this point that the district, Central Sand, will be the lead agency for the CEQA evaluation. The country club won't do that. It'll be us preparing that, and that'll be also coordinated with the county, because the Diablo Country Club is in the unincorporated county area. Okay. Karen,
Will you be taking in hazardous waste things at the open house for people that come to the open house, or is that closed?
Unfortunately, it's going to have to be closed that day. We're expecting that we might get between 1,500 and 2,000 people, and so we're going to try to close the road off that would lead to the household hazardous waste. We're going to be doing tours. We're going to be showing people things that are there, and so unfortunately, on that day, it will not be open. And that day, by the way, good transition, thank you. It's our 70th birthday this year. 70 years we've been around. We're going to have a grand celebration on the 16th of July. All of you are invited. Bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring your kids. They told us yesterday that the board of directors will be engaged in a toilet race. And I don't know what that is. You might all want to come and find out what that might be. Because I can tell you, one board member asked if you can already soup up his toilet. And I'm not sure that this is the right kind of thing, but bottom line is, we'd love to see you all there. You can see the facilities, you can meet, there will be games and opportunities for kids. There will be lots of food, and the food will be free. And we think it will be a great day and an opportunity really for the public to see who we are and how we handle our business. And the great job that I think that we do as a staff, that the staff does, as well as the board of directors will be there, lots of elected officials, and it will be a great day. So, yes, sir.
The board, the Central Sand Board meets under the Brown Act, is that true?
Absolutely. We're a public agency. We have to meet all the requirements of the public agency meeting laws. So, yes, and we are, quite frankly, we are a special district government. The special district government means we only have certain things that we can do. Wastewater collection and treatment, solid waste collection and treatment, solid waste transfer, I believe. No, transfer is you, right, Gary? You get to do transfer. We don't. But there are very limited number of things that this district can do under the provisions of the Health and Safety Code. But we are a public government, just like a city, a county, or the state. And all the rules apply to us that apply to any of the other public agencies. Yes, sir.
Yeah, first of all, thanks Paul for being here and delivering this presentation. You know, the state of the sewer is a very engaging topic for many of us. From Danville's perspective, I know geographically we're challenged being one of the furthest cities from the processing facility in Martinez.
Yes.
What, you know, aside from public sentiment, which I know is an issue, what financially, I hear that's a major problem with bringing those purple pipes down south is the funding of that. And can you talk a little bit more about the timeline? When do you see those purple pipes making it their way down here? Obviously, it's more financially feasible. You've done the research on building this facility out in Diablo versus actually building the infrastructure to extend those pipes from Concord.
Very good question. Purple pipes, quite frankly, in the future is not the way to go. Purple pipes, very expensive. $1 million a mile to put purple pipe in the ground, maybe or more. The reality is where we would like to be would be to be able to produce the water, give it, say, to the refineries where the pipes are already in the ground. They could take 20 million gallons a day, which would free up water for Concord Cost or East Bay Mud to be able to use here in the local area. Higher quality water could be used for that. We could be able to transfer water maybe to Zone 7 or other areas and agencies that need water if that happens. We have talked a little bit and we've looked at the Contra Costa water system canals, the possibility of putting water into their canals, backfilling to Walnut Creek and other places like that for use. We're looking at any and all alternatives associated with the transport of the recycled water. Ultimately, long-term thinking, when I graduated from college in 1970, they told me we would all be drinking wastewater, recycled water by 1980. Well, guess what? We're just about to 1980. But the reality is the way California is growing, the new terms are indirect potable reuse, direct potable reuse. The reality is the comprehensive recycled water plan that we've looked at actually includes the possibility of putting water directly into some of East Bay Mud's lines, some of Contra Costa's lines, if we can get to the point where the public is willing to accept the direct use of that water. Because ultimately, many of the agencies do not have adequate, they may have contracts for water, but as many of you may have heard, the river has been oversubscribed. And so as Zone 7 found out this year, they ran into some water problems. They had the rights to water, but they couldn't get the water into Zone 7. So we're looking at bigger picture items. Purple pipe is a good way to use recycled water for low-level uses. I think the long-term use of water is going to get more and more into qualities of water, domestic, potable water, water for toilet flushing and medium. And so we're going to have different levels of water in the future. And but the district and the comprehensive plan has looked at a lot of these different alternatives. But purple pipe is probably the least interesting one because it doesn't transfer great quantities of water. As you can see, 12 million gallons we're discharging, or 12 million gallons in 10 months. We're discharging 30 million gallons a day into the river. Purple pipe, even if it was everywhere, I don't think would take up the full 30 million gallons. So philosophically, that's kind of, I think, where this industry is headed. Great question.
Paul, would you drink the recycled water at this point in time?
Would I?
Yes.
Absolutely. No problem.
And also, if it, you mentioned nutrients. What is the issue with nutrients?
There is some belief that nutrients are causing problems in the rivers and places like that. And I'm not a nutrient expert. We have somebody on the board who really is. So if any of the staff wants to help me with nutrients, Melody, jump in.
Around the country, in a lot of the important water bodies, nutrients have really caused problems.
Algae growth?
Right, overgrowth of algae, which then consumes all the oxygen in the water body, and then it harms the aquatic life. So the EPA on a national level is very concerned about that. So they actually are applying a lot of pressure to California to look at that issue before we run into those same things. So right now there are millions of dollars of studies going on in San Francisco Bay trying to understand where we're at on sort of a continuum of, you know, are we heading towards a problem? Do we have a problem? You know, what do we need to do? And when is it appropriate to manage nutrients being discharged into that waterway?
It's a problem for the rivers, but not the ocean?
Right, that's, the focus is on the inland, waters, the estuaries like San Francisco Bay and the Delta, and some of the freshwater rivers, creeks, and, in California.
So
yeah.
this kind of relates to the country club water, which will be dumped into existing ponds. If there's any aquatic life in those, I don't know, but it could affect that.
Well, George, the water that will be treated will meet Title 22 and regulatory requirements, and those are developed to recognize the concerns of putting things into lakes, putting things on golf courses, and the fact is that there won't be a problem associated with that based on the current regulations.
And there's no issue about this seeping into the aquifers, this water?
No. The state is working on the regulations right now, but the reality is that the state has approved recycled water programs like this. The Big Delta Diablo program is one that evaporates almost 70% of everything that goes to the cooling towers, and it has not been shown to be any kind of environmental problem to date that we're aware of. Okay, we told you we'd try to get you out of here at 10 o'clock, but before we go, I'd like you to give a big round of applause to the staff to help Emily. Thank you all for coming. This, I think, is a very important issue to really keep the southern area informed of what's happening. If you have any questions and want to stick around after you ask them, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. I have cards if you'd like them. I'd be more than happy to come and talk to any of your groups, any of your individuals. And next year, we're going to probably do this again. So bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring your kids. And by all means, hopefully we'll see you on July 16th at the 7th anniversary of the district. Thank you very much for being here.